Hello again, I'm Kyle, and I will be reading through Esther Chapter 5. The title is Esther's Banquet. Verse 1. Now it happened on the third day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, across from the king's house, while the king sat on his royal throne in the royal house, facing the entrance of the house. So it was when the king saw Esther standing in the court that she found favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther went near and touched the top of the scepter. And the king said to her, "What do you wish, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given to you up to half the kingdom." So Esther answered, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to the banquet that I prepared for him." Okay, so at this point, we know Esther has been without food, water for at least 3 days. I never thought about it much, but when she's making the request, it's coming into the king. We knew from what Esther had said earlier that without being summoned, it could be a death sentence. So it's very serious. And I would imagine she's taking this request very serious. And when you've been without food for 3 days, and especially water, she's probably, famished to say the least, and maybe not thinking clearly. So the first order of business that she wants to take care of is first getting the king's attention. She did that. That's done. Relief is here. She had the golden scepter extended, so she's now got favor. She's got his ear. Now she's got to take care of herself. So she's made this banquet. Sounds like it's already been prepared. And so the first request here, come to this banquet. So this will be a time, in my opinion, that Esther is going to refill, because she's going to make this request, and she's going to make this request in the presence of Haman. I think this is wise because he's going to be right on the spot. Haman seems like he's a pretty crafty guy. He's taking the king's authority to exterminate the Jewish people, and he has not given much thought to it, and about the implications of that. And he seems like a person who just wants to get what he wants, and so he's probably going to be a formidable foe when Esther comes to the king, and she needs him off guard. She needs to be able to make this request and handle this without giving him time to think about his response. And I think that's wise. And as we read the story, we'll see what happens. Verse 5. Then the king said, "Bring Haman quickly, that he may do as Esther has said." So the king and Haman went to the banquet that Esther had prepared. At the banquet of wine, the king said to Esther, "What is your petition? It shall be granted you. What is your request? Up to half the kingdom, it shall be done." And so, when you're looking at that, you're thinking, hey, what, she could just ask. He's already said it's okay for whatever she wants. And yet this is her response again. Then Esther answered and said, "My petition and request is this. If I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, then let the king and Haman come to the banquet which I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said." So not only is she's kind of refueling, she's also going to get a night to rest and really maybe do some praying. That it doesn't say that because, as we talked before, this book specifically does not mention God or activities related to God. But that's kind of what might be going through your mind. Verse 9. So Haman went out that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and that he did not stand or tremble before him, he was filled with indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. And he sent and called for his friends and his wife Zeresh. Then Haman told them of all his great riches, the multitude of his children, everything in which the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the officials and the servants of the king. Moreover, Haman said, "Besides, Queen Esther invited no one but me to come with the king to the banquet that she prepared, and tomorrow I am again invited by her along with the king. Yet all this avails me nothing, so as long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting in the king's gate. So we see that she's, by inviting him to this banquet, a couple things have happened. His pride has increased, and that always knocks people off kilter. It seems his defenses against Queen Esther are lowered. He's not even seeing her as a threat. He is so focused on Mordecai that he can't enjoy the good that's happening to him. He can't enjoy the fact that he has all this authority. He has a place where he could do a lot of good, but because he needs things to be exactly a certain way, he is getting himself into a lot of trouble. He's essentially digging a hole for himself he's not going to be able to get out of. Verse 14, then his wife Zeresh and his friends said to him, let a gallows be made 50 cubits high, and in the morning suggest to the king that Mordecai be hanged on it. And they go merrily with the king to the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, so he had the gallows made. So just to recap, before we talked about the gallows, specifically in the footnote, it talks about this being a stake or wood, and I believe it was known that the Persians would impale, people who were to be made an example of. And so this is a very long pole to hang someone on. So, but I think the point was going to be made is that, as many people as can see this is need to see this. So that's why the 75 feet. And yeah, so our story continues, and the next we'll do chapter 6, and we'll go into and see what happens. We turn an interesting corner next chapter, so I look forward to being able to get to share that with you. All right.